Okay, having a quick look at Zoe's mesh for the UVs and for tidying up some geometry. So if you're not intending to bake, it's going to be important to see what kind of like quality of edges we can get without baking onto them. So we've got the polys to spare here. Right now we're at, select the whole thing, really low try count 1300. So we can reduce some polygons anyway. All of this stuff can all just merge to center. It's the most efficient way to do it. We can do the same in the middle. So I'm just doing a selection of faces, growing the selection till it has all the faces I want, converting the selection to vertices and then merging to center. So we don't actually need this one. Didn't notice there was another layer there. So as you can see, we're getting the poly count down really low, which means we can probably afford to spend a few more polygons. So first thing I'm going to do is add more bevels. Actually, tell you what, let's clean up these edges first as well. So the mesh is symmetrical, so let's do this on 1/4 and then mirror it. So going into top view, I just turned the grid on. Wrong mesh, select this mesh, face mode, delete and delete. We're left with this. Similarly on here, gonna delete all but one. Just because why UV them 4 times and why UV this 4 times? Why clean this up 4 times when we could just do it once? So, some theory stuff. Look at this edge. Look at this edge. Are these vertices doing anything for the silhouette of the model? No. So we don't need them. So I'm just going to take target weld. Delete history first because sometimes target weld can be a bit laggy if your mesh has a lot of history. And I'm just going to start welding these to the edge. Same again here. We could delete even this half of this quarter and do half a quarter, mirror it, and then duplicate it. But that's more work in my opinion. So this one is important. You see, we actually have this one. That one's not doing anything, but this one is. So if we move that, the silhouette changes. Some leftover geometry here. Ah. It's good we caught this. Something's going on in there. But there's no extra face inside, so we can just make sure we weld and weld and weld and weld. But we've got to keep our eye out for more little problems like that. So there should be one. Weirdly, there isn't one on this side, so not quite sure how we ended up with just one of those. One thing we can do is this. We could decide between this and this, but I think this looks better. It's in line with the bottom of the thing. So what I'm thinking basically is we optimize the polys we have here as much as possible, and then we can add bevels where we have, you know, space to, and it should be easier to add bevels with the less geometry we have to get nice smooth edges. Problem is that these kind of hard, like 90-degree transitions always look a bit CGI, always look a little bit fake, so I think it's worth to add some small bevels on there, especially since you're not going to bake this, so you can't fake those edges from the high poly. So it's not going to take any time. Let's just run through, repeating the same operations we did on the other side. Everything else looks good. Just duplicated, rotated, Shift D to duplicate with transform. Mesh combine. These parts are still separate, right? Like the verts aren't attached, so we need to go to vertex, edit mesh, merge, and just tweak. We probably don't need to tweak the radius. Let's see. So start at 216 verts. No, just going through the pie menu this time. Down to 182, so we lost like almost 40 verts, so that sounds about right. Like 40 points where the vertices were overlapping. It now selects as one, so we know we've done our job properly. So that's much more optimal topology without changing how the mesh looks. You also have the option maybe to delete these edges. Actually, no, because they support this shape. Never mind. Still, that looks really good. We can talk about beveling. Aha! I was wondering why I couldn't select the edge loop. They didn't quite merge at the bottom. Not sure why, but what we can do is just go in side view, make sure they're aligned properly. And from the other side view, can't remember which one we were just in. Whatever, I'll do it on both. So they that's why they're misaligned. So there was a slight asymmetry in the mesh. So we can do it like this. We know that these all need to be in line. These all need to be in line. Same on the other side. It looks fine on this side, weirdly enough. And then we need to go to the other side view and do the same thing. See, yeah, it seems to just be on one side. So I guess one edge had a little problem with it. Then we go edit mesh, merge. We went down to 174. Now if we go in face selection, we can select the whole loop, so we know we fixed it properly. So now, by beveling, we get like a nice transition on the edge. Soften, harden. And we have the polygons to spare for it, so why not? In my opinion. Same up here. This piece can be... I was going to say it can be optimized, because these look like bevels, but they're actually not changing the silhouette at all. So we're just going to stick all these back in. See, notice how the shape of the mesh doesn't change. So what we can do is make these into one edge each and then bevel the edge, and we should actually get a nice curvature on the edge. I can see from Zoe's design that this is meant to be like kind of a hard-edged geometric shape, but we still don't want this single CGI looking edge, right? We want just the tiniest bevel, just to make it look like it's made of a real material. It's going to help sell the effect. So I believe we can just select these. Three segments, really small fraction. Same one here. I should, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a little comparison. Just so you can see what I mean by this. I must have accidentally... Not sure what happened there. Deleted an edge by accident. I'll make the fraction even less on the first one. So compare these two, right? They're largely the same shape. This one just has bevels around the edges. Look at that realism. This shading looks too hard, too fake. Like, no real life object, unless it was like the most precisely machined thing in the world, is going to have that kind of edge, crispness. You could even go less than this, but in my opinion, this just sells the look so much more. And you know, we're still hugely under the poly count, so we can bevel everything basically. Remember, when we bevel and we get these extra edges, we now have a two edges. We now have a 12-sided polygon here, so we have to make sure we poke the faces or triangulate the faces. The viewer can occasionally see inside there, so let's just bevel these as well. Two segments, 0.3, 0.4. It looks really nice. So it's why I also want to bevel this piece. I would like even to bevel these corners. So I would like to bring the bevel all the way down, but then exclude the bottom faces. So we can just link up the topology there. I'll show you what I mean. Just a sec. Because we have triangulation in here, I have to do, make multiple selections. I'm just going to go around and make sure everything's selected and make sure everything I don't want selected is not selected. So now I'm going to make sure I deselect all the bottom ones. Ah, there's some problems up here. Can I go back to that bevel? Maybe in the attribute editor. Polybevel. I undid the bevel. Ah, that's a problem. Ah. Okay, so for some reason you have double verts up here. I'm not sure why. Maybe this was from my mirroring operation. So we have to bevel them. I have to merge them, but we don't want to merge this to this, right? We don't want to actually delete the bevel there. So 0.05 seems enough. Okay, there we go. Now it bevels properly. Okay, that's good. Let's check this one's actually... One. Okay. So same thing again, small fraction, 3 segments. Now we have a nice smooth edge on there. And we'll do the same thing. Just triangulate the bottom faces. And the same here. 1,300. We got so many polys to use, so why not? Why not? Why not? Bevel this. Now we've linked up the polygons, you can actually select it all the way around this loop finally. Looks good. So, we need the bevel at the top, but we don't actually need it down the bottom because it's not changing the silhouette, right? So, same thing we did before. I'm just going to squish these in. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Squish those in. And then I'm just going to go to... So what I've done is all these verts are like stacked up on top of each other. And I'm just going to go edit mesh, merge. And they should all merge together. So now we have 3 edges up here coming down to 1 point here. Same on the inside. Not sure what happened there. Couple of little weird errors, but I'm just going to tidy them up manually. So I could also bevel like in here, but you're really not going to see it because it's going to be against the glass. So just have a look at the glass itself. This geometry is not doing anything. We don't need it, I think. Yeah. But then we will bevel. All the edges, just a tiny bit, same thing we've been doing so far. I'm going to leave the gems with hard edges. I think that's obviously a design choice, so let's do some UVs. Now we're happy with how it looks. It's 1,500 plus like 150 from this is still way, way under. But we have some nicer edges now. You could even do like... Oh, that looks really good. Maybe we should do that. Looks very nice. So let's UV the parts now. One thing I'm going to do is just check for n-gons here. Turn off all the remove geometry stuff. Just click select matching polygons and faces with more than 4 sides. There was no faces with more than 4 sides, so perfect. Okay, that's all the more than 4-sided faces gone. Let's switch to UV editing mode. And let's get started. So I'm going to start with the gem and then duplicate it around just whilst I remember. This is a pretty nice way of doing it, but let's just start from the beginning just to see. I don't think this even needs any cuts. Just unfold it like that. Stretching is minimal, it's fine. It's better to have a bit of stretching than to have a seam right on the front. And then this part, well, I actually don't need this. It's going to be tucked inside the frame, so let's remove that. Let's pick the part that's least likely to be seen, which is probably going to be this one down here. Cut. Oops. Let's just go from here, double click to here. I said from here to here. There we go. You have this and this. That's how I do it. Move them out of the 0 to 1. That's generally how I work. Move them out until you're ready to lay out. And duplicate this round. So we've got 4 of those. Let's create a camera based on this. Just groom my vertex selection. Then I'm going to go to faces, to contain faces. So now I have this. It's one shell. Do the same thing in the middle. Missed an edge somewhere. Ah, top of these. So it is a lot harder to unwrap with all the bevels, but it's worth it for how it's going to look. We probably have to put a little bit more work in at this stage because we're not baking it, so we're working with a higher, more dense geometry, low poly, I should say. Okay, there we go. So this piece comes out, and it just needs some cuts. If I double click select in the UV editor, it's only going to cut from seam to seam, so we're not going to go around the whole thing. So we could unfold that like that, but since these parts are all hidden, it makes sense to cut them all. And we can lay these out really nicely. So we have these parts. That way we can lay them all out the same if we want to apply like a nice pattern to them or something. So we're just left with this, the outside piece. Cutting under the bevel. Just made a planar projection of this so I can access these seams really easily. For some reason those are cut, which suggests weird. If there's an edge that won't sew, sometimes just deleting the face, filling the hole can work. So we can't see it there because we're isolated, but when we go back, we can see it. So just going to go around and do that on all of them. Trust that the hole did fill. You can tell because the seam disappeared. It's just that the isolation mode doesn't show the new face. Now we can easily access these because we've made a planar projection to access them. Question is, what do we do on this one? Do we cut them all off the same way? Or we could actually reduce the number of seams by doing a cylindrical. So if we grab this edge, cut this part off. this. Then we can just do create cylindrical. Oh, that's nice. Just scale it till the squares are square in the important parts on the spikes. Take that one off. So this is our layout so far. We can even do a cylindrical with these actually. Why not? Bottle's really easy. Do it that way. I think the way this was UV'd, honestly, is fine, having every face off separately. Just because we'll get a better layout. We'd have to do two cylindricals, like one here and one here, if we were going to get like an accurate projection from it. I think we can just do this whole piece off, one loop all the way down. Excuse me. What is that? Oh, you have some like invisible faces in here. What the hell is that? Is that something to do with this? I don't know if this is something you guys picked up in VFX, but why do you have hidden faces? And how do you unhide them? Just delete them. Okay, that's fine. 2,000 triangles, all UV'd. Let's just do a quick layout. Glass needs to be laid out separately. Now we can definitely maximize the space by keeping every other one. Rotate it. Pretty good. I think we can make more cuts to save space by doing this. Is that? Ah. So now our space is being limited by these shells. So I think we just cut them in the middle. It's under the gem, so no one's going to see. Just a cut there. That's how I do it. Bottle. Everything else. Sorry, everything else. So let's do a little test. We're not baking high to low, but we need to bake low to low. We need to bake the mesh to itself. So what we do is we go texture set settings, bake mesh maps. In this case, we don't pick a high poly here. We turn on use low poly mesh as high poly mesh. We don't need to tweak the distances because we know the low poly mesh is exactly the same as the high, so there's not going to be any cage issues. Bronze armor. Always bronze armor. My glass material. Make another copy of this. UV chunk fill. Get those gems. And we can actually copy mask. Add white mask. paste into mask, and then invert mask. Yeah. Cool. There we go. I kind of got a bit carried away with that one, but that's the result we got. So hopefully it was helpful to you.